The night sky above the alien village was quiet, painted with 2 moons and thousands of stars. The air was cold and strange blue trees bent in the wind, making soft whispers. The people of the village gathered near the fire, their eyes full of fear and sadness. In the center of the crowd sat a young alien child. His skin was pale, his eyes large and shining like glass, but his small body shook not from the cold but from pain. One of his arms was gone. A wound from the war, or maybe from a wild beast. No one knew for sure. What everyone knew was simple. The child could not play, could not work, and his future was broken. The villagers whispered. Some prayed. Some looked away, ashamed that they could not help. Their technology was lost after the battles. Their tools were broken. The child would never live like the others. But that night a stranger came. At first only shadows moved near the edge of the firelight. Tall, broad-shouldered, and walking with a slow, calm step. When the villagers saw him clearly, gasps filled the air. It was a human. Humans were not welcome in this land. Some said they were dangerous. Others believed they carried secrets, weapons, and strange powers. The elders whispered that humans brought only trouble, but this one did not carry a sword or a gun. He carried a box of tools, shining, clicking, humming softly in the dark. The villagers stepped back, forming a circle around him. Fear spread through the crowd like fire. "What is he doing here?" one voice hissed. "Keep him away from the child," another warned. But the child sitting by the fire lifted his eyes. He looked at the human with no fear, only curiosity. The human knelt slowly, lowering himself so he would not look threatening. His face was calm, his eyes tired but kind. He placed the box down and opened it. Inside, the villagers saw strange things. Small silver parts, wires glowing faintly, and tools they had never seen before. "I can help him," the human said softly. His voice was steady, almost like a promise. The crowd stirred. Some shook their heads. Others wanted to chase him away. But the child did not move. His wide alien eyes shone brighter in the firelight, and he whispered, "Please." The elder of the village, a tall figure with cracked skin and heavy robes, stepped forward. "Why would a human help one of ours?" he asked. His voice was deep, suspicious. The human looked up, meeting the elder's eyes without fear. "Because he deserves hope," he answered. Silence fell. The wind hissed through the blue trees. The people exchanged worried glances, torn between mistrust and desperation. The elder frowned, thinking. The child lifted his small hand, his only hand, and touched the elder's robe. "Let him try," the child whispered. The elder sighed, his eyes full of sadness. At last he stepped back. "Do it, but if you harm him..." His words trailed off like a warning in the air. The human nodded once. He picked up his tools and sat near the child. Slowly, carefully, he began to work. The villagers gathered close, watching every move. Sparks flickered from his tools, glowing red in the night. The human's hands moved with skill, shaping pieces of metal, connecting wires and fitting parts together. It was not alien design. It was not something they knew. It was human craft, strange, powerful, and beautiful in its own way. The child stared, wide-eyed, as the pieces began to take shape. Fingers of metal, joints that bent smoothly, wires that pulsed with soft light. The air smelled of smoke and heat, but the human did not stop. He worked with quiet focus, as if the whole world around him had disappeared. Whispers filled the crowd. "Is this magic?" "No, it is human skill." "Can he truly give the boy an arm again?" The child's breathing grew faster with each passing minute, not from fear but from hope. He could almost imagine it, the feeling of having 2 arms again, of being whole once more. And yet, deep inside the crowd, fear still grew. For every alien watching knew one thing. Acts like this never went unseen. The world was changing, and when humans touched destiny, the consequences were never small. The wind grew colder. The stars above seemed brighter, as if the universe itself was watching. The human lifted the nearly finished limb in his hands. It glowed faintly, alive with energy. The child's eyes widened, and the villagers gasped as one. It was no longer just metal. It looked almost alive. The elder whispered in a trembling voice, "What are you, human? A healer or a danger?" But the human did not answer. His eyes stayed on the child, and with steady hands he prepared for the final step. The night was thick with silence, every breath held in suspense. For in that moment, the fate of the child, and perhaps the whole village, balanced on the edge of human hands. The fire burned low in the center of the alien village. Shadows danced on the faces of the people, and all eyes remained fixed on the child and the human who sat beside him. The night was heavy with fear and hope, tangled together like two sides of the same thread. The alien child sat still, his thin body trembling. His one arm clutched his knees while the other side of his body, where his limb had once been, was only an empty space, covered with old scars. The pain was not fresh, but it lived inside him every day like a ghost that never left. Every time he looked at the other children running, laughing, and climbing the trees, his heart broke a little more. He was different now. Broken. The villagers had tried to comfort him. They gave him food, told him stories, and even carved wooden toys to make him smile. But nothing could change the truth. He would never live like the others until tonight. The human's tools clicked and hummed beside him. Sparks flew into the night as pieces of silver and glowing wires were shaped into something greater. The child's wide eyes never looked away. For the first time in so long, he felt something strange deep inside his chest. It was not sorrow. It was not fear. It was something warmer. It was hope. The villagers, however, were not so sure. Their whispers cut through the air like sharp knives. Humans are dangerous. His machines will curse the boy. No, look at his hands. He works like a healer. Or like a trickster. The elder silenced them with a glance, but even he could not hide the worry in his eyes. The child finally spoke, his voice soft, almost like a breeze. Will it hurt? The human paused. He looked into the boy's large alien eyes and gave a small smile. Yes, a little, but after the pain you will be strong again.
You will run.
You will climb. You will live. The child swallowed hard. His chest rose and fell quickly, but he nodded. I am not afraid. The human's smile grew warmer. Good. Brave ones heal fastest. The villagers shifted uneasily. Some of them looked away. Others leaned closer, curiosity battling with fear. The sound of the human's tools echoed in the night, steady and sharp. Piece by piece, the arm was coming to life. But the child's thoughts were elsewhere. He remembered the day he lost his limb. The screams, the fire, the crushing sound of stone and metal. He remembered reaching for his mother, but she never answered. He remembered the silence afterward, broken only by his own cries. Every night since then he dreamed of running again. Every morning he woke with the same cruel truth: he could not. But tonight something was different. The human's hands moved with calm power, as though he had done this 100 times before. He worked with patience, fitting wires into joints, connecting light to energy, shaping the arm as if it were art. It was not cold like alien machines. It was warm, alive with human imagination. The villagers began to notice. They leaned forward, their eyes wide. Some gasped softly as the metal fingers curled for the first time. Others covered their mouths, whispering prayers to gods long forgotten. The child's breathing grew fast again. He wanted to touch it. He wanted to believe it was real. His small body shook, not from pain this time, but from excitement. The human glanced at him. Almost ready, he said gently. The child nodded quickly, his eyes glowing like stars. Thank you. The words were simple, but they cut deep into the silence of the night. The villagers froze. No one had ever heard the boy speak with such strength before. His voice carried something new, something they had thought lost forever. Hope. The elder stepped forward, his robe dragging across the dirt. His old eyes searched the human's face. Why do you do this? He asked again, his voice sharp. What do you gain from this act? We cannot pay you. We cannot trust you. The human did not stop working. He lifted the arm, twisted it gently, then fitted another piece in place. His voice was steady when he answered. Not everything is done for gain. Sometimes we help because it is right. The elder frowned, but he said no more. His heart was heavy, but somewhere inside a small spark of belief flickered. The human finally set down his tools. The arm was complete, silver and light, shaped with strength and care. It did not look alien. It did not look human. It looked like something greater, born between two worlds. The child's eyes filled with tears. He could not look away. His voice shook when he whispered, Is it mine now? The human nodded. Yes, if you are ready. The villagers held their breath. The elder closed his eyes in silent prayer. The night was silent, broken only by the crackle of the dying fire. The human reached for the child's shoulder. Slowly, carefully, he touched the scarred place where the limb was missing. His hands were gentle, yet strong. The child flinched, but he did not pull away. The human spoke softly. "This will hurt for a moment, but after, you will be whole again." The child bit his lip. His small body trembled, but he lifted his chin bravely. "Do it." The human gave one last nod. Then he pressed the arm into place. The world seemed to stop. A flash of light. A hiss of metal. The child screamed, short, sharp, but filled with courage. The villagers gasped as the arm connected, wires glowing, sparks flashing. The smell of heat filled the air, then silence. The child's chest rose and fell. His eyes opened slowly, and for the first time his new arm moved. One finger twitched. Then another. The hand curled into a fist. The villagers cried out in shock. Some shouted in fear, others in joy. But the child only stared at his hand, then at the human, tears falling down his face. "Thank you," he whispered again. This time his voice was strong. But just as the villagers began to cheer, a sound cut through the night. A deep echoing horn. The ground trembled under their feet. The elder's face turned pale. "The queen is coming." The echo of the horn faded into the night, but its sound still trembled in the hearts of the villagers. Everyone froze. Some clutched their cloaks tighter. Others looked toward the dark path leading into the valley, where heavy footsteps now echoed. "The queen," whispered one of the villagers, voice shaking. "She is coming." The human glanced at the child, then at the people, and finally at the path beyond the trees. His face remained calm, though his eyes darkened with thought. He knew what a queen meant in alien culture: power, authority, judgment. If she did not approve of his actions, this night could end in blood. But there was no time to hesitate. The child still trembled with his new limb, the fresh connection glowing with faint light. Sparks still pulsed in the metal veins, the wires humming gently like a heartbeat. It was alive, but not yet stable. The human spoke softly to the boy. "We must finish. Do not fear." The child nodded quickly, though his wide eyes flickered with both excitement and dread. His new arm twitched, moving in small jerks. The fingers bent, stiff and shaky like a newborn learning its first steps. Pain crossed his face, but he did not cry. He wanted this. He needed this. The human opened his box again. Inside, small silver plates gleamed. He picked one up and began to fix it carefully around the arm's joints. Every movement was precise, as if he were building not a machine but a piece of art. The villagers edged closer, their whispers sharp in the air. "Look, it moves. Is this cursed magic? No, it is human craft. Strange but powerful." The elder stood silent, watching with heavy eyes. He did not trust the human fully, but even he could not deny what was before him. The child was whole again, and that was a miracle no one else could give. The child winced as the human tightened a wire. A flicker of pain crossed his face, but he stayed strong. "It hurts," he whispered. The human's voice was calm, steady. "Pain means it lives. Do not fear." And slowly the pain eased. The arm steadied. The glowing wires dimmed to a soft pulse. No longer violent sparks, but gentle streams of light. The boy raised his new hand higher. He opened and closed his fingers. For the first time since his injury, he reached out with both arms. Gasps filled the night. Some villagers wept. Others dropped to their knees. The child's eyes shone with tears, but his smile broke through the pain. I can move again." The human gave a small nod, his lips curling into the faintest smile. "Yes, it is yours now." But before the villagers could rejoice, the ground shook again, this time heavier. The sound of boots. The sound of soldiers. The elder turned pale. "She is close." Fear spread quickly. Villagers scattered, some hiding behind huts, others pressing into the shadows. The queen was not known for mercy, and if she saw a human touching her people, altering them with strange machines, none knew how she would react. Still, the human did not stop. He picked up a final plate of silver, attaching it gently near the shoulder joint. "One last step," he said firmly. "Then it will be strong." The child gritted his teeth and nodded. He would not fail now. The human pressed the final piece into place. A soft click echoed, then silence. For a long moment nothing moved. Then the arm shifted, smoother than before, bending as naturally as flesh. The boy flexed his hand, lifted a stone from the ground, and held it high. His laughter broke the tension like sunlight through clouds. The villagers stared, stunned. What they had thought impossible was now real. A child broken by war was whole again, because of a human, but their joy lasted only seconds. The first of the Queen's guards appeared at the edge of the village. Tall, armored, with spears that glowed faintly in the night. Their eyes scanned the scene. And then behind them a towering figure stepped into view. The Queen. She was taller than all the rest, her skin darker, marked with glowing symbols of power. A long cloak trailed behind her, shimmering like liquid silver. Her crown was not of gold, but of bone and crystal, a reminder of her victories. The villagers fell to their knees, pressing their heads to the ground. Not one dared raise their eyes. The child froze, his laughter vanishing. He turned, his new arm still glowing faintly, and looked at his queen. Fear returned to his eyes. The human slowly rose to his feet. He did not kneel. He stood tall, calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. The Queen's gaze fell on him first, cold, sharp, then on the child. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the new limb. The air grew heavy as if the whole world held its breath. Finally she spoke, her voice deep and commanding. "What have you done?" The villagers trembled, afraid to answer. The elder dared not speak. The silence stretched like a blade over their necks. At last the child lifted his new arm. His voice was small, trembling but clear. He fixed me." The Queen's eyes widened slightly, though her face gave no sign of anger or mercy. She looked at the human again, her voice colder than before. "Human," she said slowly, "you touch what is mine. You shape what you do not understand." The human bowed his head slightly, but his voice was firm. "I shaped what was broken. I gave him hope." The Queen stepped closer, her cloak brushing the dirt. The guards tightened their grip on their spears. The villagers dared not even breathe. The air was heavy with tension. The next words from the Queen would decide everything. The night was still, but the silence was louder than thunder. The villagers knelt, their foreheads pressed into the dirt. None dared to raise their heads while the Queen stood at the edge of the firelight. Her tall form shimmered with power, her cloak heavy with jewels and bone. Her eyes, sharp as blades, burned as they fixed on the human. The human did not kneel. He stood firm, his chest steady, his gaze calm. The child sat between them, caught in the storm. His new arm, still glowing faintly, rested against the earth. Sparks flickered across the metal like fireflies, dim but alive. The Queen's voice was cold, cutting the night in two. "Explain." The human's answer was simple. "The boy was broken. I made him whole." Whispers rippled through the villagers, but none dared speak loudly. The Queen lifted a hand, silencing all. Her eyes shifted from the human to the child. "Stand," she commanded. The child hesitated, fear rising in his chest. His legs trembled, but he obeyed. Slowly he rose, his small frame shaking under her gaze. The new arm twitched again, glowing brighter, as if it sensed the weight of this moment. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The child swallowed hard. His breath came fast, but he lifted his new arm. At first it jerked clumsily, fingers stiff and uncertain. The villagers gasped, some turning away, afraid the limb might fail in front of their ruler. But then something changed. The boy's face tightened with focus. His new fingers flexed slowly but steadily. The hand opened, then closed. Then smoother this time, it reached for a stone near his feet. The crowd held its breath. With a soft whir of metal, the child gripped the stone and lifted it. The glowing wires along his arm pulsed gently, in rhythm with his heartbeat. The stone rose higher and higher until it gleamed in the firelight above his head. The villagers gasped as one. Tears streamed down the faces of mothers and fathers. Children clutched each other in awe. Never had they seen such a miracle. The child's eyes shone like twin suns. For the first time since his loss, he felt strong, whole. His laughter, bright and clear, broke the heavy silence of the night. The Queen's expression did not change. But her eyes flickered. For the briefest moment, something passed across her face. Surprise. The child lowered the stone carefully and looked at her with trembling lips. "I can move again," he whispered. His voice cracked with emotion. "I am not broken anymore." The Queen stepped closer. The guards moved with her, their spears gleaming, but her raised hand stopped them. She walked until she stood over the boy, her tall shadow falling across him. She looked down, her gaze fixed on the arm. Her voice dropped lower, heavy with power. "Who gave you this?" The child's chest rose and fell quickly. His new arm twitched again, nervous under her stare. but he did not look away. His eyes turned to the human, then back to her. He did, the boy whispered. The human! The queen turned sharply toward the stranger. Her cloak swept across the dirt, her crown gleaming in the firelight. The villagers pressed their faces deeper into the ground, trembling. You dare, she said, her voice like thunder. You dare touch one of mine? The guards stepped forward, their spears ready. The villagers cried softly, some begging for mercy. The elder closed his eyes, fearing what would come next, but the human did not flinch. He met the queen's gaze without fear. I dared to heal, he answered firmly. The words hung heavy in the air. The fire crackled softly, but no one moved. The queen's face was unreadable. For a long moment, silence stretched like a blade ready to cut. Then she turned back to the child. Kneel, she commanded. The child obeyed quickly, falling to one knee. His new arm shone brightly in the firelight, glowing stronger than before. The queen reached down, her long fingers brushing against the cold metal. She pressed her palm to it, feeling the hum of life within. The boy winced but did not pull away. The queen's eyes closed for a moment as if listening. Then she opened them again, her gaze sharper than ever. This is not our design, she said slowly. This is human craft. The villagers gasped again. For them, those words carried both danger and meaning. Human craft was feared, but also respected. It was unknown, yet undeniable. The queen stood tall once more. Her voice rose, echoing across the night. This gift changes everything. Her guards looked at one another, confused. The villagers trembled, not knowing if her words meant hope or doom. The child looked up at her, desperate. Please, he whispered, do not take it away. The queen's gaze lingered on him. For the first time, her eyes softened, only slightly, but enough for those close to see. She turned to the human again. You gave him back what was lost. You made him whole. Her voice dropped, dangerous but curious. But why? What do you seek from me? The human bowed his head slightly, but his voice was steady. Nothing. Only this, to prove that even in the dark, kindness still matters. The queen's lips curved, though whether it was a smile or a warning, none could tell. Kindness, she repeated, her voice almost a whisper. The fire crackled louder, the smoke curling into the stars above. The child, still kneeling, lifted his new arm again, bending it with more strength, more control. The glowing wires pulsed brighter, no longer weak but steady, alive. And in that moment the villagers knew this was no trick, no curse, no false miracle. The limb was alive, and the queen had seen it with her own eyes. The night air was heavy as the queen stepped fully into the circle of firelight. Her tall figure cast a long shadow that swallowed the kneeling villagers. The fire crackled softly, but even its flames seemed to burn quieter in her presence. Her guards stood like statues around her. Their glowing spears pointed slightly toward the human. The villagers pressed their foreheads deeper into the dirt, trembling with fear. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe too loudly. Only the child stood frozen, caught between hope and dread. His new arm glowed faintly at his side, each pulse of light like a heartbeat echoing through the village. The queen's gaze swept over the people, pausing on the elder, then falling at last on the child. Her sharp eyes narrowed when she saw the limb. She circled slowly, studying it as though it were both a treasure and a threat. At last she spoke, her voice low but strong. Who gave you this? The child swallowed hard, his voice small. The human. The queen turned her gaze upon the stranger. The weight of her eyes was heavier than stone. Her cloak shimmered in the firelight as she stepped closer. You meddle in what you do not understand, she said coldly. You touch what is mine without permission. The villagers flinched at her tone. Some prayed silently. Others feared that blood would be spilled before the night ended. But the human stood firm. He did not bow. His voice was steady. I touched only what was broken. I gave it hope. The queen's eyes narrowed. Hope, she repeated, as if tasting the word. Your kind speaks of hope while bringing destruction. Her words were sharp like blades. The guards shifted, ready to strike if she commanded. But the queen lifted her hand, stopping them. She wanted answers, not blood, at least not yet. She turned back to the child. Show me. The boy hesitated, but then raised his new arm. The metal gleamed. The fingers curled and uncurled smoothly. Gasps filled the air as the child lifted a wooden bowl from the ground with ease. The queen's eyes followed every movement. She leaned closer, studying the wires, the joints, the glow that pulsed gently within. Her long fingers brushed against the limb. The boy flinched but did not pull away. The hum of life ran through the arm, steady and strong. The queen straightened, her face unreadable. Her voice was quiet now, but each word cut deep. "This is not our craft. This is not of my people." The elder bowed low, his voice trembling. "Forgive us, my queen, we did not stop him." The boy begged, and we had no choice. The queen's sharp eyes shifted back to the human. "And you, stranger? Why would you give such a gift? What do you seek in return? Power? Influence? Favor?" The human shook his head. His voice was calm, though his heart pounded. "I seek nothing. The child was broken. Now he is whole. That is all?" The queen studied him, her expression hard to read. Silence stretched across the village, heavy and suffocating. Even the fire seemed to wait. At last she spoke again. "You dare act without my word. You bring human craft into my land. Do you think this will be seen as kindness, or as insult?" Her words made the villagers tremble. They lowered their heads deeper into the dirt, whispering prayers that the human would not anger her further. But the human did not falter. His eyes stayed locked on hers. "Kindness is not insult," he said firmly. "It is strength." For the first time, the queen's lips curved, though it was not quite a smile. It was sharp, dangerous, like a blade half hidden in the dark. "Strength?" she repeated softly. She turned away for a moment, her cloak sweeping across the ground. Her guards followed her movements, but she raised her hand again, keeping them back. The child stepped forward suddenly, his small voice breaking through the silence. "Please," he said. His new arm trembled, but he lifted it high for her to see. "Do not take it away. I can live again. I can be me again." The queen paused. For the briefest moment, her sharp eyes softened. She looked down at the boy, and something flickered in her expression. Something no villager had ever seen before. It was not anger. It was not pride. It was something deeper. The queen knelt, lowering herself to the boy's height. Her guards gasped softly at the sight, for their queen never knelt. She studied the boy's face, then his arm, her long fingers hovering just above the glowing metal. "You are mine," she whispered. "My people are mine, and yet—" "This gift was not given by me," the child's voice cracked, "but it was given by him." He pointed to the human, his eyes shining. "He made me whole again." The queen's gaze shifted back to the stranger. Silence fell again, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of decision. She rose slowly to her full height, her cloak flowing like water. Her voice rang out across the night. "You have changed what was broken. You have touched what was mine. And now," she paused, her eyes piercing the human's. "Now you will answer to me." The guards stepped forward, their spears glowing brighter. The villagers cried out softly, fear rising like a storm. But the human did not move. He stood tall, his face calm, his eyes steady. He had faced danger before, and tonight he would not run. The night was thick with silence. The queen stood tall in the firelight, her guards ready with glowing spears, their eyes locked on the human. The villagers stayed bowed low, afraid even to breathe too loudly. Only the child stood close, clutching his new arm to his chest as if it might vanish if he let go. The queen's voice broke the silence. It was sharp, commanding, and heavy with judgment. "You stand before me, human, and you claim this is kindness. Yet I ask you, why should I believe you? Why should I not see this as an insult to my people?" Her words struck the air like thunder. The villagers trembled, pressing deeper into the dirt. The elder whispered prayers, knowing the wrong answer could bring death. The human raised his head. His voice was calm but strong. "Because I healed what was broken. I did not insult your people, I honored them. The boy is whole again. That is the truth." The queen narrowed her eyes. She circled him slowly, her cloak sweeping across the dirt. Her guards followed her every step, their weapons glowing brighter with each moment. "You speak of honor," she said coldly. "But humans are known for conquest, for fire, for destruction. You take what is not yours and call it mercy." The human met her gaze. His voice was firm. "We are also known for compassion, for building, for hope. The limb I made is not a weapon. It is a gift." The child stepped forward, his small voice breaking through the tension. "He helped me. No one else could." "Please, my queen." "Do not punish him," the villagers gasped softly. Some covered their mouths, shocked that the child would dare speak to her so boldly. But the queen's gaze did not leave the boy. She studied him for a long moment, her eyes lingering on the glowing arm. "And you, child," she said slowly. "Do you trust him?" The boy nodded quickly. "Yes, with my life." The queen's face hardened again. She turned back to the human, her voice dropping lower, dangerous. "You see? A child trusts you. But trust is not enough for me. Tell me, human, what do you want in return?" The human stood still, his shadow long in the firelight. His answer came without hesitation. "Nothing." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Nothing? No one gives without reason. No one acts without gain. If you expect me to believe this was only kindness, then you take me for a fool." The human's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "You are no fool, queen, you see truth. And the truth is simple, I wanted him to live. That is all." The silence stretched again. The villagers waited, trembling. The guards tightened their grip on their spears, ready for a single command. The queen stepped closer, so close that her eyes burned directly into his. "And if I said your act is a crime? If I said no human may touch what belongs to me? What then?" The human's heart pounded, but he did not look away. "Then call it a crime," he said quietly. "But I will not regret it." "I would do it again," the villagers gasped. Some buried their faces, expecting death. Even the elder trembled at the human's boldness. But the queen did not strike. Instead, her lips curved into something strange. Not a smile, not anger, but something sharper. "You defy me," she whispered. The child's voice cut in, trembling but strong. "He saved me. If that is defiance, then I beg you, let him defy again." The queen's eyes snapped to the boy. The guards shifted uneasily, confused by their queen's silence. The fire burned low, its smoke curling into the night sky. The air grew colder, heavier. At last the queen spoke again. "You claim kindness. You claim no reward. Yet your craft has power. Power I do not know. Power I did not grant. Should I fear it?" The human bowed his head slightly. "Fear it only if you fear healing. Fear it only if you fear hope." The queen stared at him for a long, unbroken moment. The weight of her silence pressed on the villagers like stone. Finally she turned, her cloak sweeping wide, her voice ringing like steel. "Hope," she said. A dangerous word. She raised her hand. The guards stepped forward. Spears hummed. Villagers cried out softly, clutching each other. The child ran between them, standing before the human. His small body trembled, but his new arm rose high, glowing in the firelight. His voice cracked, but was clear. "If you take him, you take me too." Gasps filled the village. The elder's eyes widened. The guards hesitated, and for the first time the queen's expression shifted. Her hard mask cracked just slightly, and something deeper flickered in her eyes. Not anger, not hatred. Something else. She lowered her hand. The guards froze. The villagers lifted their heads in shock. The queen's voice was quiet now, but still sharp. "Perhaps," she whispered, "perhaps this kindness is not weakness." The villagers looked at each other, uncertain, afraid to believe. The human stood still, his heart racing. The child lowered his arm, his eyes shining with hope. But the queen's face remained unreadable. She turned back to the human, her eyes burning. "You have given me a choice, and I will make it. But not tonight." Her words left the air heavy with suspense. The villagers knew this was not an ending. It was only the beginning. The fire had burned low, its glow flickering weakly against the dark of the night. The villagers remained bowed, though some dared to raise their heads, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. The guards stood like statues, their spears glowing faintly in the shadows. In the center of it all, the queen stared at the human. Her sharp eyes seemed to cut straight through him, weighing every word he had spoken, every action he had taken. The child stood close to him, his small frame trembling, but his new arm glowed brightly, steady and alive. The silence was heavy, thick, endless. Every villager waited for her judgment, hearts pounding. Would the human be killed? Would the boy's gift be stripped away? At last the queen spoke. Her voice was low, but it carried across the entire village like a command from the stars themselves. "You risked much, human. You touched what was not yours. You defied me in front of my people." Her words made the villagers bow deeper. Even the elders shivered. The guards' grips tightened on their spears. But then the queen stepped closer. Her cloak swept across the dirt as she stopped before the child. She looked down at him, her eyes softer now, though her face still carried the weight of power. "You," she said to the boy, "do you truly want this? Do you truly wish to carry the work of a human within you?" The child lifted his chin. His voice trembled, but it was brave. "Yes, it makes me whole. It makes me strong. I want it. The queen studied him for a long moment. The villagers held their breath. Finally, she reached out her hand and touched the glowing arm. The boy gasped, but he did not pull away. Her long fingers traced the silver surface, feeling the hum beneath. The wires pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. It was alive, but not alien. It was human. The queen's eyes narrowed, and then she did something no one expected. She bent lower until she was face to face with the boy. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then keep it. Let it remind you of this night. And of him. The villagers gasped. Some cried out in disbelief. Others covered their mouths. Never before had the queen spoken with such gentleness. She rose again, turning her gaze back to the human. Her eyes were still sharp, still dangerous, but there was something new in them now. Not just suspicion, not just anger. Something else. You are bold, she said slowly. Too bold. You defied me, yet you gave hope. You brought change I did not ask for, yet I cannot deny it. The human's voice was calm. Change is not always asked for. Sometimes it is needed. The queen studied him in silence. Then she turned to her guards. Stand down! The guards hesitated, then lowered their spears. Relief swept through the villagers like a breath of wind. Some wept quietly. Others whispered thanks to the stars. But the queen was not finished. She stepped closer to the human, her voice dropping lower, sharper. You gave a child a limb. But can you give more? Can you heal not just one, but many? Can your craft mend what war has broken in all my people? The human's heart pounded. He knew the weight of her words. This was no longer about one child. This was about an entire kingdom. I can try, he said softly. The queen's eyes glimmered in the firelight. For the first time her lips curved, not in cruelty, not in scorn, but in something close to respect. Then perhaps, she said, you are not here to destroy us. Perhaps you are here to save us. Gasps filled the village once more. The elder raised his head, stunned. The child smiled through his tears, clutching his new arm with pride, but the queen's voice sharpened again like a blade hidden in silk. Do not mistake my words for trust, human. You stand on a thin line. One misstep and hope turns to danger. One failure and your gift becomes a curse. The human nodded, his eyes steady. I understand. The queen turned, her cloak swirling like a storm. She raised her voice so that all could hear. This night will be remembered. The boy is whole, the human lives. But from this moment forward, his craft belongs not to himself, but to me. The villagers bowed deeply, their voices whispering prayers of relief and confusion. The guard stepped back, still watchful. The queen looked at the child one last time. Her words were softer now, almost tender. You have been given more than a limb, little one. You have been given a future. Guard it well. Then she turned away, her steps heavy, her guards following close behind. The firelight flickered across her cloak until she vanished into the shadows of the trees. The villagers slowly lifted their heads. The elder approached the human, his eyes wide with awe and fear. You do not know what you have done, he whispered. The human looked down at the child, who smiled brightly, his new arm glowing like a beacon. Perhaps, the human said quietly, or perhaps this is only the beginning. And above them the stars shone brighter, as if watching the first spark of something far greater than any of them could yet imagine.